Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode, or the very first minute of Miami Minutes. This is the podcast where we discuss and dissect and love each minute of the hit, well, no, not a hit, but the movie Miami Connection from 1987, 1 minute at a time. I am one of the hosts, Niall McGowan.
I am your other host, John Parker, and I am here to make friends forever.
Are you here to chew bubblegum by any chance, or kick any form of ass?
Oh, well, you know what? This is a bit TMI for the first episode. I've been chewing gum every day lately, but I've got a chipped tooth, and the chewing gum keeps getting stuck on it.
From chewing gum, is it?
No, not from chewing the gum.
It's a way of you start off too, like, oh, it's going to be TMI. It's like, you're not going to be saying you're eating ass or something. Like, where was this going? Like, how?
Niall, it's 2022. We're all eating ass. Come
on. That's why my mind automatically jumped to it. But it's been like, but you didn't chip a tooth eating ass, did you? By any chance?
Well, that's a topic for another day.
Oh, although now we're going up. The first episode, we're starting off on a tangent.
It'll be a novel new form of podcasting, much like covering this movie is. People have covered so-called bad movies before, but as we went through, in the preview episode, not only is this not actually a bad movie, but nobody ever talks about this on podcasts.
No. And the thing is, though, for it being a bad movie, anytime anyone ever watches it, they end up loving it as well. Mm-hmm. So it's this kind of weird thing of like, oh yeah, this is supposed to be trash, but like this is golden trash. But
yeah, it's
kind of a weird. I will emphasize to people because I know from my own experience going into Movies by Minute podcast to listen. Sometimes I skip over the episode 0 because I'm like, oh, I'll just get into the show. I would highly advise everybody to listen to episode 0 because that's where like all the base information about Miami Connection actually is. The rest of the show is just going to be me and John sort of very, very, lightheartedly riffing on the movie. There won't be much like intricate detail or anything.
Yeah, because there's not a lot of intricate detail you can go into, but we can have fun with like theories and trying to find our own theories on what's exactly happening and why. yeah.
But I mean, yeah, to jump in at minute 1, which like it doesn't mess around though. Not so much the film. The film actually does take a while about 3 minutes to get going. But the logo comes out at the beginning. It's like a heart attack. It's just like getting hit in the head with a sledgehammer. Just like
yeah, and it's the coolest damn music I have ever heard. You already know this is going to be a fantastic film.
Yeah, but it's just such a jarring. It's just hard, jarring 80s synth, just like not even any kind of build-up. No foreplay. It's just like blah, right in your goddamn.
Well, they're pressed for time. This is I was going to say it's a low-budget movie, but as we went over, actually, no, it cost him a lot of money. somehow it cost a lot of money.
But it's I don't know. I was really surprised to find out that because the logo is Manson International.
Yeah, not Charles, not Marilyn.
That's what I was saying. Like, well, it's nice that Charles Manson, he went behind bars, I guess he was producing such hits as Miami Connection.
That wouldn't surprise me if that was a nugget we discovered.
It's like, only through the elimination of violence can we prevent Helter Skelter. No, it's like, we'll get into Manson International, but because of everything around Miami Connection and it being like almost kind of singularly the vision of YK Kim, I was fully expecting going through it in this level of detail to be like, this is going to be like, when The Room starts.
And there's like 20 million nonsense logos.
Yeah, there's 20 million nonsense logos, but it's also like, Why So International, produced by Tommy Wiseau. Yeah. And just Tommy Wiseau is everything all the time. I was stunned to find out that Manson International is an actual company. Or at least was.
It was, yeah. Because in 87, it was sold to Management Company Entertainment Group. I've got a little history here. And then in 95... that group and Orion Pictures merged. And Orion, they were a big company, and they formed Metro Media International. And then in 97, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer acquired them. So MGM owned the Manson library.
I mean, I know there's always that weird business of actually, we mentioned we all anyone doesn't know us from our previous show, Batman, where we talk about Batman all the time, but frequently we'll go in to start talking about like The Simpsons and Hannibal Lecter, and yeah, it was because of the big one of Orion Pictures to me is Silence of the Lambs. That's the thing I really remember. Like, oh, that was an Orion movie.
Yeah.
And then,
isn't it Terminator 1, Orion?
Yeah. I think there's like loads of stuff in the 80s, but for some reason, Silence of the Lambs always pops out to me as being one. And then I remember, like, by the time, Red Dragon came around, it was MGM. And that's why, because it's like Orion was gone for a while. Although Orion's back now. I remember it's.
Ooh.
I think people had a real genuine nostalgia for it, but there was a couple of movies. I think it might have been like, I don't know, it was like Booksmart, or there was some films recently where, shockingly, the old Orion logo came up, and it's like, what the hell? Like, it's back.
Is it like an imprint almost, like for the lower budget, more experimental, not blockbuster movies? Put that out as an Orion picture.
Yeah, I believe so. I think that's very much what they're. Because again, too, I think a lot of people have a sort of like, whatever happened to Orion Pictures? That was like a really reputable studio, and
and an iconic like logo and stuff.
Yeah. So now it does pop up every so often, with almost like a kind of the tinge of nostalgia adds to it as well. It's like when like when the Joker movie came out and it opened with like the old Warner Brothers logo from like the 70s, and it's like, remember, this is showing you the kind of movie you can expect. So if you in your mind have the idea of like what an Orion picture is, it's kind of going like this is in that same vein. Because certain people, like nowadays, if you saw an A24, A24, someone ripped the arse out of me one time when I called it A24. And I was like, it's A24. It's like, I've only ever seen it written down. What the hell you want from me?
Well, that is a problem. Like I call it A24, but I could have been equally as wrong. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say it.
Yeah, but it's like. It's like, no one goes around talking. I mean, people probably maybe they do on shows and stuff. I've only ever seen it written down. What do you want from me? But they have a sort of like, once you know what an A24 movie is, you forever know what kind of thing to expect out of it.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, Manson International though. They did have quite a like surprising stable of movies. They did. I did think it was a bit bad looking it up though, because knowing Miami Connection comes out in 87, to see like company information for Manson International being like established 1953, defunct 87.
I wonder why.
Connection destroy the studio. But I believe they did do several other features after this. It didn't completely bankrupt them or anything.
I made a list of some of the ones that stood out to me. I'm not saying they're particularly good necessarily, but I just thought it was interesting. Scanners, they did.
Yeah, that's a very reputable movie. Yeah. I was really expecting it's going to be all Ninja Terminator stuff.
Well,
but then to be like, no, Scanners is there. It's like, what? Oh, that's like a proper film.
The next one I wrote down was Rotor, if you remember Rotor.
Yeah.
The Howling 3. Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2.
Oh, that is a genuine classic. That's the Garbage Day.
Yeah, I watched the two of them like most Christmases.
But I mean, like, so if that company can now just rest easy, then like, well, we gave the world Miami Connection and Garbage Day. Like that. If people don't know, just look up Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, Garbage Day. It's like, for a brief while, if you were on the internet in the last 10 years, you will have seen the clip because it was quite infamous.
Hey, and if you haven't seen the movie, when it hits Christmas time, watch it, please. They also did Meatballs 3. Classic.
That stuck out to me because I believe Jack Nance is in that. That's Jack Nance from like Eraserhead and Pete Martell from.
Oh my god!
I remember there was a documentary they did called "You Don't Know Jack," about his life, and they were saying like towards the end he was like having to appear on Absolute Dreck and stuff. And they mentioned Meatballs 3. And they're like, the thing is, he has a big emotional phone call with his son. And it's like one of the most beautiful friggin' things you'll ever see.
But it's in Meatballs 3.
It's like he really pours his heart and soul into it. He's so good. but it's in Meatballs 3. People are like, this is it. This is the height of Jack Nance. And it's like, it's, you really have to go out of your way. I would never have known that had it not been for that documentary.
Hey,
so.
You know what, right? Here's a tip to people. No matter what, give it your all. Even if it's the worst movie ever. Just do it. Like when I'm performing with the band, like some gigs are big. Some gigs there's hardly anybody there. But you know what? You just go for it as if there's loads of people. And then afterwards, everybody just goes on, oh, that was so amazing. Oh, and it's because you looked like you cared. So Jack Nance, he knew that. He's a pro. He got it. And he's like, I don't care if this is trash. I'm Jack Nance. They did actually do one very good thing. They distributed Gojira in the US. Godzilla.
Yeah, but that was how they started off. They were a distribution company for foreign titles. So like the first 30-odd years of Manson International, which I will note is that it wasn't founded by somebody called Manson. Apparently it's a amalgamation of Edmund Goldman and Sam Nathanson.
Jeez, couldn't they have come up with a more interesting name then than just a name that sounds like a guy's name?
And a Gold Nathan Productions. Even that sounds out more than I guess maybe they were like, well, maybe people will be going like, Charles Manson? Is he the guy who's producing this movie?
It'll bring notoriety of some sort.
It's like, he almost made an album with the Beach Boys, right? Now he's producing Miami Connection.
I'll admit, when I found that out about him as a kid, I was like, wait, what? The Beach Boys and Charles Manson were friends?
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't call them very good friends. I think it was more like Dennis Wilson being terrified of this psychotic acquaintance that he had kind of thrust upon him.
Okay, probably very. They were close working relationship in a way. I don't want to say they're friends. That might be a bit of a lie.
No, he's like lived in his house for a while, but Dennis Wilson was away and then come back and he's like, oh, this guy's. He's still here, and now he's saying he wants to make an album and stuff.
Okay,
but yeah, they one of the big things they did, they would have Manson International would have introduced America to Gojira. Then they would have been the one to go like, okay, we're taking the Japanese title, we're gonna distribute it.
And let me tell you, right, I love all the Godzilla movies, all of them, but that first one, that is a real film. Like it's a masterpiece, I think. It's incredible. It's very serious, about the effects of nuclear war and things like that. Which, the later ones don't really have too much of that in there. There's a little bit. There's a little bit.
Well, it's a classic. We think you would associate with Hollywood and being like, well, they had a great idea originally, and then it was successful, so you just kept watering it down with insane sequels that didn't actually mean anything, like First Blood. Then go, you hop, skip, and a jump to Rambo 3, where you're like, what the hell is happening?
That's a very good comparison, actually. Yeah, similar trajectory.
Yeah, but this is so Gojira is made to this is a commentary on the aftermath of the Hiroshima bombing and stuff, and then next time it's like he's fighting a giant moth. It's like, what's that saying? Nothing. He's just fighting. Come on, now he's got it's a mecha Godzilla's here all of a sudden.
It's a robot. Now he's fighting 20 monsters all at once.
I thought that was the kind of. I don't know if you saw the Kong versus Godzilla. That was out last year or the year before.
No, it was longer ago than that, wasn't it?
No, I think it was a big pandemic movie. It was one of those ones where they're like, "Can we test? Will people go to see this in the cinema?" It was a real trepidatious kind of thing.
Time has no meaning anymore because of that pandemic.
Yeah, but I remember that was my only takeaway. I just remember it goes into some crazy crap where it turns out the center of the Earth is actually an ecosystem. It's like a universe unto itself. Mm-hmm. Where they go in and it's just it's a blue sky and volcanoes everywhere, and it's it's got seas and stuff. And you're like, what? And then at the end they're just you're like, oh, so what's happening here? And then it just turns and it's like, guess what? The way that usually you get these two characters that are kind of heroes in their own franchises. How can we have them fight each other and one of them lose? No, it has to be they team up against someone else, and that someone happens to be Mecha Godzilla. You're like, oh my god! And I was just watching it going this is so expensive. There's so much money been poured into this thing.
And hardly anybody will care.
That was the crazy thing. It's there's so much money going into this, but who's going to see this? Maybe without the pandemic, I don't know if they would have made their money back in this.
No, they absolutely wouldn't. Only weirdos like me and you would watch it.
Yeah.
Like Miami Connection.
Yeah.
Why did they spend that much money on it? Oh, my God.
Well, I mean, money well spent, quite frankly.
Well, we agree. The general public didn't agree, quite clearly.
Well, only because you listed like a good list of movies there that the first one they actually produced was a thing called Radioactive Dreams when they made their own movie. It was produced by or was directed by Albert Pune, who went on to make the forgotten Captain America movie from the 90s. And it was like a post-apocalyptic film noir, detective mystery starring George Kennedy. Like, I was like, well, that you won me over right there. That sounds great.
I'm on board. Let's cover that.
Yeah, underneath is like inspired by Brigadoon. Like, what? Okay. And they also made something called Millie/Willie, which
I hate it already.
Yeah, and if you're thinking it reminds you of Glenn or Glenda, it's because that's what it is. Basically, it's a 80s comedy about a teenage girl who wishes she was a boy, and then wakes up one morning and it's Freaky Friday'd her into a boy's body.
So it was written by a trans man, basically.
I thought maybe it's worth looking into. The thing that really popped out to me about it was it stars Pamela Adlon, who is like the voice of Bobby Hill.
Oh my God! What? I did think for a second you were going to say Pamela Anderson, though. I'll be honest.
I mean, I haven't looked in the rest of the cast list, but no, Pamela Adlon's like a beloved character actress. Pamela Adlon's and and it also stars John Glover, who of course was in. We did a deep dive on in our Batman and Robin season. Dr. Jason Woodrue from Batman and Robin. It was kind of because the title like Millie/Willie really popped out, and I was like, I don't remember talking about this in Batman and Robin. It's like, how the hell did that get past us? But
yeah, what the hell? I suppose we're looking at so much stuff for the Batman movies. We're pulling from all different areas. It's hard sometimes. You miss stuff. Yeah,
I mean, too, like John Glover's only in that movie for about 4 minutes, and you have to look at it. He's got like 200 acting credits, so it's kind of like there's a lot to talk about going through the guy's career and stuff. But yeah, so there's another one. I'm sure I'm assuming he played the dad in it because John Glover's one of those guys. Like, he still looks great. He's still very active in things today. But he's always been about 40. Whenever you see him and stuff, it's like, oh, it's John Glover. He must be young in this. Like, nope, he's not young in it. he's middle aged. He's perpetually middle aged. That guy. So.
Like some of the characters in this movie.
Yeah, well, they're young at heart, John. They're young at heart.
That's all that matters. Are you young at heart?
Almost tying back into our opening thing about me automatically assuming that you were chewing ass to chip your tooth. One of the movies listed that the Manson International made was called Santa and the Three Bears. And it is to my detriment that I automatically assumed that was a porn movie. And was stunned to find out. I was like, no, it's like a kid's thing about Santa and the Three Bears.
You could easily make an X-rated version.
I'll tell you that anything now with like Santa and bears in the title, it's just like, there's no way it's not going to be a porn. Particularly the circles we run in, John.
Santa and the Three Twinks would be the new one. But I'll do what I said a second ago again. Hang on. But then we are right into the movie. That was very, very fast. And I tell you what, I'm not making fun of this. I love the crackle on the sound. And I know it's because they don't know what they're doing. But it reminds me of like a vinyl record or something. Yeah. It's got a charm.
I think it might be as well that like, because this was, the movie was lost for like, what? 24, 25 years or thereabouts. So like, it's probably just like, maybe originally it wasn't, that crackle wasn't there, but it's like, well, negative's been sitting, or like the print or whatever they have of it has been like in a box in a garage for 25 years. Like, it didn't keep, like, this is the remastered version of it, but maybe the star of it was like, it's just a lot of scratchiness and
that's the thing. There's only without more sources, there's only so much you can do to remaster it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they do a pretty good job overall, considering.
Oh yeah. I don't want to say the movie looks great because It doesn't, but for what they're working with,
It's got an interesting sort of color palette. I think it's very high sort of contrast, bright brights and dark darks.
Yes, yeah. Although even within the opening seconds here, they do this. I'm assuming maybe it's supposed to be like a symbolic thing of like you're going into the dark underbelly. Yeah. Because it starts off with like broad daylight and then immediately switches to nighttime.
Hang on, that was weird. I thought like it's a bit of an early sort of occasion to do a time jump.
Yeah, it feels as though unless it was supposed to be like this is the beautiful shores of Miami, but now we're going into the dark, nighttime things. It's like it's supposed to draw attention to that, but I don't know if you needed it. You could have probably just I don't know. I mean, maybe YK Kim, maybe he had a thought process of like, oh, you need to start off with something that looks bright to let audiences adjust their eyes, or so. I don't know what the hell.
Maybe because this scene in particular does highlight what I love about the color palette, but also confuses me about the color palette. How have they shot this nighttime scene? What's with the lighting? Why is there a blue tint to everything, like the green in the Matrix? Is it day for night?
I was tempted to say maybe day for night, although it really reminded me of the future scenes in the Terminator.
Yes, yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Oh my god,
because that was always when it got into like, was it Terminator Salvation? Is that the one that's the one with Christian Bale? Right?
Yeah, where everything's out in the bright open daylight. Yeah, which contradicts the story of the Terminator when he explicitly says that they have to move around at night.
Yeah, and it's just it really feels like where's the blue? There's like we're finally showing you more of that stuff you liked from the first two, and then it's just like this doesn't look like that. This is a completely different color palette. At least base it on the thing that people like already. But like you go for that 80s dark nighttime is always bathed in blue for some reason.
Yeah,
like a cold icy blue.
Maybe that's what it is. It's to show these characters cold hearts. That's what it is. Because
that's why you only ever see YK Kim and his crew in broad daylight, warm hearts.
That wouldn't surprise me if that was actually a feature of the movie. But
we keep an eye out from here on out.
We're on color palette watch, people. Keep your eyes peeled. And I also love how we start with us being somewhere in Miami, which is hilarious enough on its own, but also extra hilarious when you realize that most of the movie isn't even shot in Miami. Yeah.
Or set in Miami. This is it. This is the Miami section. I mean, I know we have our friend Stephanie Palladino, who was raised in Miami, and she's like, "Oh, if you need any info about, get me in there at some point." It's like we'd have to get you within like the first 4 minutes because it was the only minute set in Miami.
But these minutes show the connection. These are the guys connecting Miami and Orlando.
Yeah. I'd like to say, I always point out to people too when they mock the Miami connection part of it. It's like Fargo isn't set in Fargo.
Yeah.
The opening scene is set in Fargo, much like Miami Connection, and then it moves off to Brainerd.
So you're saying that Fargo is a remake of this? Okay.
I mean, has anyone ever cornered the Coen brothers and said, was it a little nod to Miami Connection to call the movie after the town that features in the opening but doesn't feature in the rest of the movie? They might well have been like, yes, it was.
Absolutely was. Facts. You heard it here first, listeners.
That would have been in like the mid-90s when the movie was lost, but they could have been like, we were two of the 6 people who saw Miami Connection in the brief period of time when it was out in 1987.
It's going to become one of those famous things where everybody claims they were there, like when the Sex Pistols played Manchester.
Yeah.
And it's like a tiny venue, but there's about 8 billion people go, yeah, I was at that gig. It's like, no, you were not.
They make a point of that in 24-Hour Party People. Like Tony Wilson, he constantly breaking the fourth wall to talk to the camera, and he goes on about like if you were to believe the people who say that they were here this night, they just list this massive friggin' laundry list of people, and he's just like, oh, I actually was here, and I can tell you who was actually here with me.
I am to understand, Morrissey was actually there, right? And Mick Hucknell of Simply Red, I think.
Mick Hucknell is mentioned explicitly in 24 Hour Party People. Morrissey, not so much. And I don't know, because him and Tony Wilson had a weird relationship as well, so I'll be surprised. Like, the Smiths do get a mention, but they're not featured heavily in the... I don't know if it's any kind of... They're like, it's best leave that alone.
Maybe
kind
that's
of a thing
what it is, yeah.
Although I don't think... I think the Morrissey one... Mick Hucknell, I believe. Morrissey, I think that might be a bit of the legend of, like...
Maybe.
And they always had, like, it was some milkman, apparently, who was very famous amongst the Manchester scene, was there as well. He's played by that guy, Dave Gorman. He plays him. He gets up and sings Louie Louie straight after.
Amazing.
This was like the local milkman who everybody loved. And he's almost like a proto-Bez, where, like, he would just go up after whatever band played and start singing, like, a cappella Louie Louie, and everybody loved him. So,
I've got to steal some of these moves off this guy. I'm going to start singing in between songs.
yeah, I mean, he doesn't even have to. He's not good at singing, so it doesn't even, you don't even have to. I guess it's like that's the punk ethos. Anyway,
Yeah, but there's being a bad singer with style, and there's being a bad singer. That's the difference.
Yeah.
It's different.
That's what YK Kim would say about this movie. Oh, there's been a bad movie, a tasteless bad movie, and then there's being a bad movie with style. And,
exactly, and this is a
Miami Connection has style, porn out its ears, baby.
It really does. But we see as well this motley crew of crooks chilling down at the waterfront. And one of them, I thought, looked straight out of the 30s. Whereas all the rest of them are like 80s stereotypes. But there's this one guy, I think it's his hat. But maybe these were all the rage at the time, going for like a Cuban vibe or something.
Oh, the Panama hat. Yeah. So that was the thing. It's like, my eyes were so drawn to it.
Well, you're a hat man.
Yeah, but then when it cuts to the other group, they also got a guy in a Panama hat.
You've got to have one.
So it wasn't like, and making notes for minute one in particular, I was like, is it the same hat that like we don't have?
They just share it.
But then as the week goes on, like they do meet and they both are wearing the Panama hat. But then it was getting me thinking, like, did they have a deal on Panama hats when? Like YK Kim's like, yes, here's the costumes I got for everybody. It's like, if it wasn't that, then they might have gone to these, like, I'm assuming these guys are like local theater actors or probably just some guys.
I tried to find out, no information.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be much information on anyone outside of the main cast. And even then.
Yeah, that's pushing it as well.
But it could have been like you saying, like, oh, can you dress kind of gangstery? And one of them would be like, oh, I got a Panama hat. And the other guy's like, I got a Panama hat too. It's like, you can't wear a Panama. I'll wear a Panama hat. Like, guys, you can both wear a Panama hat. Okay?
Do you reckon it's to tip us off that these are like the two guys leading the deal? I'm not saying they're the bosses, because they've probably, they've got bosses further up the chain, but they're the sergeant, so to speak.
Yeah. It could be like one of those ones of like you'll know who you're dealing with because he's in the hat. Mm-hmm. Don't worry, Apu. Just go about your business as if I'm not wearing the hat.
It is odd because I don't know. I don't think of Panama hats in the 80s, but again, I've not been in Miami. No. And Miami's got it's got a lot of people come over from Cuba and things. So maybe it is normal there. I don't know. It could be. But everyone else looks suitably 80s, I think.
Yeah. The thing is, too, like, well, you'll know who you're dealing with by them wearing this distinctive hat. It's like, they'll also be surrounded by, like, a swarm of people with machine guns.
Yeah, just holding Uzis out in the open.
This is, like, the most inconspicuous meeting. It's like, why are they going out to this derelict... Well, we see more of where they actually are in the next minute. I was like, what the hell is this place they got to? And like, why do you need so many of them?
It's true. And is this how shady deals go down, right? You just chill and, like, wait? They're just sitting there with guns out, like, yep, they'll be here any minute. Cool.
Yeah, the main guy, he does have like an aggressive look at his watch and a proper like kind of like, it's a weird note to start off your like action-packed romp.
Well, he's missing Miami Vice.
Our Tubbs is going to be wearing a Panama hat and missing it.
I could imagine the characters of Miami Vice in Panama hats. They probably do wear them all the time, and I'm just forgetting.
I'm 100% certain they do. Yeah. But it just seems like an odd note to start off with, like, a bunch of characters sitting around really bored before, like, this is the start of the movie and stuff. But at the same time, like the first 5 minutes of Once Upon a Time in the West is just a bunch of guys sitting around really bored waiting for a train in complete silence. And then eventually friggin', Charles Bronson shows up and they're like, hey, we're off to the races. So it could, you never know.
It works sometimes though. And I does it work for you? Does this all build tension? Because for me, in isolation like this, not knowing the rest of the movie, I find it's cheesy, but it does sort of work because I'm thinking, like, what's going on? These other suspicious guys arrive with boxes. What could they be?
Yeah.
They're clearly just boxes of beer or something, but I mean in the plot of the movie.
No, to be fair, so then eventually, unfortunately with this week, we only get to see like a little bit of it. But actually this is week to week. I'm so adjusted to the 3 minutes a week thing, but like next, in a couple of weeks time, we'll eventually get to the everything properly kicking off. It does actually, the calm before the storm. It does actually kind of work in the context of the movie to be eventually then when that ninja star gets thrown. It's like, hey, here we go. It's like the thing's boiled over. It's finally, erupted and stuff.
Yeah, that's why it does. I don't mind them looking bored because, as well, ultimately, it's not that long. When you're watching it like this, it kind of might feel it. But in the grand scheme of the movie, like, it's over before you know it.
Yeah. Plus, it does establish a lot, to be fair, as well. You're getting the two groups and a bunch of ninjas. And it kind of builds up that, like, yep, this slowly creeping in towards each other, and then something's gonna happen, So,
well, we get that other gang arriving on bikes, some kind of biker gang. So this being the 1980s, we can naturally assume that these bikers are evil, much like punks in the 80s. They're all evil, apparently.
Yeah, but I guess though, if it was you would have had good bikers, but they would have always been like originally coded as being bad. It'd always have been like renegades, like, oh, he must be a bad guy. It's like, no, that's the twist. He's actually the hero.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's like there would have been like a million of these like schlocky, zero budget ninja action movies back in the 80s. But the visuals to me immediately screamed Danger 5. Like season 2 of Danger 5, where they were sending up, but it was so like keyed in that I was almost like, were they referencing Miami Connection a lot? In because if people don't know Danger 5, it's a 2-season spoof action show where the first season was like sending up like spy thrillers, like and Thunderbirds and stuff.
What a weird combination.
Yeah, and like maybe a little bit of The Prisoner and things like this, and all the kind of like the old English Avengers. And it was just like, like really, really, really exceptionally silly, Naked Gun plus level of farce. Where, every time there was like them trying to kill Hitler. And it was the 60s. And then season 2 immediately just jumps into this really dark 80s inspired, where it's all like, American Ninja kind of crap. They're doing like Miami Vice and American Ninja, all the cheesiest and sleaziest of 80s TV and cinema packaged into like, they go undercover. Oh, Hitler goes undercover in a high school. And he goes by the name Johnny Hitler, and he's clearly about 70 years old, but everyone loves him and thinks like, oh, Johnny Hitler's so cool and
it's
stuff.
Such a wild shift, and I love it, but I think that's probably why it ended up failing. It's because a lot of viewers were probably thinking, what the hell is going on?
It's a hell of a... Particularly if you're really like, oh, we're just kind of settled into that first season. Now it's like, oh no, you didn't settle. That's it. You're going to have to try to get... And then after this season, who knows what the hell we're going to do.
I do miss it.
But I think they made audio. They made a season 3 in audio form last year, I believe. I don't know how I haven't listened to it. I don't know how it worked in audio form, but
we didn't imagine it would work. Jump into the 80s, and it did.
Yeah. It's just more like this. It's so visual a show. It's like how do you get away with that? But they have because it's filmed to look like it was made in the 80s as well, and it looks exactly like these opening scenes. There's so much of it's just like that lighting, just the costuming. But even the film grain and stuff, it's like, oh, yeah, I'm sure they were riffing on a lot of things, but it seems so like Miami Connection. It was just weird to me.
I've never thought about it, but oh my God, it really is similar. Holy crap. Those characters would fit in this.
My final note is this was weird seeing at Steven Spielberg with an Uzi behind the main guy there.
Oh my god.
This is what. We'll get into it. We'll get into it in the following minutes.
Oh yeah, save it. The only other thing I will say, I'm going to bring this up regularly on the show, and I will participate. Niall, you can join in or not. But I have the Miami Connection drinking game from drinkingcinema.com, who make drinking games for all kinds of films. I've shared this on our social media, but if you're listening for the first time, go to drinkingcinema.com or find it on our Facebook and whatnot. Now, unfortunately, checking the drinking game, there's nothing to consume yet, sadly.
No.
There will be soon. It won't take long before we get some drinks in us. Every time there's a ninja roll, you take a drink. Every time there's a shirtless dude, you take a drink. Fist pump, take a drink, etc. There's more. So it won't be long, but in minute 1, no drinks.
No.
You have to save it.
Again, calm before the storm.
Oh, yeah, there's going to be some sections later where I'm going to pass out. I'm going to do it. I'm going to play along while we record. I promise you. I am even purchasing some Korean alcohol for it. Which I think we talked about that on our preview episode. I was getting Korean, and you were going to make a Miami kind of cocktail.
Yeah, but I still got my mojito here. I didn't splash out to try to find other Miami drinks. I was like, I still have the mojitos here. So,
well, if you're listening, Stephanie, let us know what's a hot or cool Miami drink.
Yeah. The only other thing I'll mention is in terms of just to tie back into, I think, one of the last episodes of Batman and Robin. We ended up talking quite a bit about a movie that one of the people in the credits was associated with called Scarecrows. And I remember it distinctly because the tagline was like, "If they only had a brain, yours."
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And apparently that movie was distributed and produced by Manson International. So there you go. Our first everything's connected with of the season, I guess, kind of.
It's normally a recurring bit on Batminute. I don't know how often it's going to come up on this, but we're going to try, people. We're going to try.
Yeah.
But anyway, we will head off now. We will all connect next time, listeners. If you want to find us on the internet, we are on Facebook at the Miami Minutes Taekwondo Orphanage, Twitter at Miami Minutes, Instagram, same again, Miami Minutes. Our website is miamiminutes.kim, or you can email us at miamiminutespodcast@gmail.com. If you want any merchandise or anything, you can look up our network, Sleepy Charlie Media, on TeePublic, or you can head over to Patreon, and Sleepy Charlie Media put out extra bonus Patreon episodes over there. So do investigate all of that, and connect with us again next time for minute 2 of Miami Minutes.
Listen to me.